What's up, guys, and welcome to episode 5 of Skins in the Game, where John and Tim talk about what's going on in the sports world. But first, we just wanted to make a quick address to what's going on in today's world. Everybody on the sports world is also talking about, as well as the rest of the world. And of course, it's what's going on with all the rioting and the George Floyd situation. And I boil it down to three things. If you're against any of these three, you're wrong, and that's where I'm going to leave it. And step one, what happened to George Floyd is horrible, horrific, terrible. The officer should get in trouble, and that's what should happen. Step two, the the people have the right to protest, and if they want to protest whatever they feel is necessary, then they should be able to protest. Is what it is. And then step three, I draw the line at looting and damaging people's property that had nothing to do with George Floyd's death or police brutality in general, and that should stop immediately. So those are my 3 points. If you're against them, I believe you're wrong.
Well, there you go. Then there's not much to say. I agree that they have to do something about the people. I think they're steamrolling right now, and they need to do something to stop that, so that they can get back to the protests that they're doing. But yep. I will say one thing: I don't think there is a such thing as violent protest. Violent protest is not a protest. I think that's an oxymoron. But that's all I'll say about it.
Cool. So it should be peaceful. Everybody agrees it should be peaceful, and and whatever you do, you definitely should not be hurting people that had nothing to do with it. You know, like Target had nothing to do with it. Your small business around the corner had nothing to do with it. Like, don't throw bricks through the windows. Don't damage their property. Like, it's ridiculous. But anyway,
well,
that's all.
You're not running off with 4 pairs of tennis shoes because you feel bad about George Floyd. Just saying.
Yeah. There you go. Awesome. All right, with that addressed, now we will get what's going on in the actual sports world, and that starts with the NBA. The NBA is apparently getting ready to vote this Thursday on a potential 22-team return. According to reports, that would include 6 teams that are currently not in the playoffs, and that would be 5 teams from the West, 1 team from the East, and that would be the Phoenix Suns, New Orleans Pelicans, San Antonio Spurs, Sacramento Kings, Trailblazers on the West, and the Wizards from the East. What do you think? Should they do this 22-team return?
I think that means we're going to have another national champion in the Washington, D.C. area, don't you?
Yeah, there you go.
If the Wizards are in, no, they're not going anywhere.
No, not in the NBA, unfortunately. It would be an awesome story if one of these 6 teams did come back and win the title, but the top is just too strong. The Lakers, the Clippers, the Bucks, it's probably going to be one of those 3 teams.
I think the NBA is probably, one of the only, I will say not the only, but the most, that upsets are the least likely. That, somebody might sneak through a round, but you don't get those Cinderella stories very often in the NBA where a team that's like an 8th seed or whatever seed they are, and they somehow sneak by, because one thing about series and basketball, that the better team usually wins. I mean, it happens all the time in hockey. It happens in baseball. Football is probably the second least likely, but it still happens in football. But I'm trying to remember the last time there was a team that was not a favorite that went all the way. I'm sure it's out there. I just can't think of one offhand.
I don't know off the top of my head either, the last one that came through. But what's weird to me, I just wanted to mention this, is that I've read some things that seems like they kind of want to keep it an East-West competition, right? Like, so when they actually get into the final 16-team bracket, it would be an East versus West. I don't know how you really handle this situation with 5 teams from the West fighting for the 8th spot and 1 team from the East fighting for the 8th spot. Like, how do you make that work? It's really like for me, this in order for this to work, you have to abandon the East-West concept, play a few games to get everybody warmed up again, and also to see where they seed and rank. The bottom 6 then go into a play-in game. The bottom 8 would maybe do like a mini tournament to get into who's got the 8th seeds. And then you have the top 14 teams ranked accordingly, and then you go from there.
Well, what if you kind of did it like the NCAA, where, okay, what did you say, there was like 16 games left in the season? So
yeah, something along those 18, I think, something like that.
So the Wizards, being 5.5 games down, you certainly can't argue that they don't have a shot, but it's a very slim shot. So what if they just did a series of play-in games for the 8th seed on both sides, and whether they pick 4 teams that play each other or 6 teams, however they want to do it, and they basically have a play-in, it's a mini tournament to play into the playoffs, and whoever wins on each side gets the 8th spot in their respective conferences.
Hold on, say that one more time.
So I'm saying that, okay, you have the 8, basically you have the 7 teams that are in the top 7.
Uh-huh.
You take the 8th team,
uh-huh,
and whatever number you want to pick below that, I don't have that figured out, but you basically take the 8th team and make them a part of a play-in, I'll call it a play-in tournament, where they play, let's say they go with 4, I don't know.
Okay, I can see what you're saying. Okay, so you would take the 8th seed of each conference, then the next, like, let's say 3 teams in that conference, they play like a quick tournament almost to get into the 8th seed of the playoffs.
Yeah, they split those, so 4 teams, they draw straws, whatever, I don't know how they figure that out either, but they basically play one game, the 2 teams that win that play another game, and the team that wins that goes into the playoffs.
Yeah, but in order for that to happen, you have to abandon the East-West conferences, because you can't do that with...
No, I'm saying that you pick the teams from the East and the teams from the West, and they play in to get their respective spots. So you don't go with the 5-1. You basically pick whatever on the West, whatever number you pick on the West, you pick from the West, and whatever number you pick from the East, you pick from the East, and those teams play it out.
I agree. So, okay, I see what you're saying. If you're going to stay with the East-West concept, I agree, you have to do it that way. Like, that's the only way that makes sense. And you could still make an argument to say, like, oh, well, that's unfair because the Phoenix Suns has a better record than the, who's the team in the East right now, right there, than the Charlotte Hornets. Like, why should the Suns get kicked out? We do that every single year with the East and West Conference. It seems like the Western Conference is always better than the East. The 9th seed in the Western Conference almost always has a better record than the 8th seed in the East. And we say, sorry, 9th seed, you're out, 8th seed in. So you could easily make an argument to say there really is no argument for that other side. But it would be fun to bring those 6 teams that had the better records, abandon the East-West concept for 1 year, call it the Quarantine Classic like the NHL, or maybe you come up with your own style name, and make it, here's the rankings, all the records, 1 through 22, split it up into 2 different brackets or whatever with 11 teams on each side, couple play-in games. It could be a lot of fun, I think, if they did it that way.
No, I think, yeah, that would work too. I think ultimately, whatever they do, people are going to watch it because I think they're so starved for sports right now that they would take it in pretty much any format they did it.
Yeah.
That could be.
Right. So, yeah. But yeah, they're supposed to vote. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, yeah, I agree with you. Set up like brackets and just do a straight seeding from the top to the bottom, and you fit into where you fit in the bracket. You play and work your way down to a Final Four, and then so.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun. I do. I think that'd be fun. But yeah, we will find out. Apparently, they're supposed to vote for it on Thursday, and according to reports, that no matter what they decide to do, the NBA owners are ready to vote for it. Kind of on the same sentiment that you're saying. It's like, All right, you iron out the details, however we want to do it. All right,
Let's just do it.
yeah, let's get it done. Awesome.
So, I guess we have no idea, even with NHL, when any of this is going to happen.
This one said, I heard reports that they're going to try to aim for a July 31st start.
Okay, so that's going to
would be their goal.
So what are they going to delay next season then?
Yes. I know that Mark Cuban's talked about where they would come back just Christmas Day would be day one of next season.
Wow, that seems a little extreme, but okay. I mean,
yeah. I don't know. It's not that, 2.5 months into the season. You shorten up the next season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are they talking about then? Doing a truncated season next year, or extending that, letting that season run its course and that one run to July?
I would imagine that it would be a truncated season.
Okay.
And maybe it goes a little bit longer. Maybe it goes into July instead of June. But so maybe they don't completely scrap out the 2.5 months, but still they're going to have to eliminate some games to make that work schedually so that they can get back on track in 2021, the start of the season.
Of course, you realize that they scrapped some games and the fans actually like it better. That might be a problem. Hey, I prefer 60 games instead of 82. Maybe you should do that.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Awesome. All right, well, we will now talk about another return, and that is the MLB is talking about making a return. And this is quite contentious. So the MLB has come out and said they want to have a 50-game season with a prorated amount of money accordingly to pay the players. The MLB PA, the Players Association, bounced back with a 114-game regular season. That is not very close. Like, if you think of it at money percentage, the players with a 50-game season would only get 30.8% of their money. With a 114-game season, they would only get they would get a 70.3%. So
both of them are talking prorated. They're just arguing out of what they're prorated.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep, and the players are like, absolutely not. We're not playing a season on 30% of our money. Like, that's not happening. It's basically a non-starter for them.
Okay, well, maybe the alternative is, okay, you don't play the season at all and you make no money.
Yeah, I don't...
Right? I mean, I know the owners don't want to do that either, but...
Yeah, because the owners want to make money as well. Like, the owners are going to obviously lose a lot more money if the season doesn't come out than the players would lose.
Well, let's see, and I'm not absolutely sure about the MLB, but the contract, the money they get for TV, they're getting. Because they have a contract, like I said, at least this is with the NFL, so I assume that other sports have a similar deal where basically they have a 10-year deal or 20-year deal, whatever, with TV, and it goes up each year, and what they'll end up doing is just tacking a year on the end of it, so basically the league is getting their TV money. They're not holding that back. It's basically like, yep, the contract will continue, we'll figure it out later. So that part of it they're getting, but the owners are the ones that are going to get hit. Well, I guess there's revenue sharing too, but the owners are the ones that are going to get hit by the lack of concessions and all the money they make at their stadiums, that they're not going to get that, especially if they start with 0 fans in the stand. So I think that, the attitude, I guess what I'm trying to get at is players are always kind of like when the money's going good, then they want part of it. The owners make all the money. We want some of that money. So they say, okay, we'll pay you a certain percentage. And then when that money goes down, now suddenly the players are like, hey, we're not the owners, we're the players. That's your problem. So That's what the owners have always tried to say is that, sure, when things are going well, you think everything's great, you want a part of it, but as soon as it starts going bad, now it's our problem.
Right.
So, and not that any one of, players included, not that any one of these people are going to be standing in a food line anytime soon.
Yeah, none of them are. Yeah, they all should be pretty good. What I think should happen, and what I'm looking at is, so I went ahead and just looked at what the Nats schedule is supposed to be, and how many games have they missed out on already. So they've missed out on about 60 games already, with April, May, and March. Those 3 months are already gone. And if we at this rate, they're already going to miss June because as soon as they come back, they're going to have a training camp and things like that. So right now they're going to be missing 86 games, even if they started July 1st.
They started March. I thought it didn't start till April. But anyway,
yeah, it's like March 28th or something like that. Yeah. Okay. All right. So starting at July 1st, if they went to the end of the season, they would have 76 games left. Okay? I say they add October to the regular season instead of being the playoffs. That adds about 30 more games because there's a couple days left in September as well. So they can get 30 more games in October. That puts them at 106 games. Then they make the month of November the playoffs. So it's just a month later. So the players then get a prorated amount. They would get 65% of their money at this point and they were already agreeing to 70%. So they just lose 5% on their money. The season still gets to be a substantial season, 106 games. And then it ends in November, which gives them plenty of time to start in March. Like start back up in February.
My question is though, does weather start becoming a factor at that point? I know it's cold in October, and maybe it doesn't, but that's the only thing that I could see their pushback on is, okay, now you're dealing with weather, and especially if you're like in Colorado, then where there's more likely to get snow, or wherever. Minnesota might be a better example than in November. Yeah. Now you're talking about, I guess, Minnesota.
So maybe in this case they make the World Series championship to be in a set location like the NFL.
Yeah.
Which they're probably going to have set locations no matter what they do, because they're probably not coming back. Because in my theory, or my what I would want them to do is basically when they vote on it soon, like basically get everybody in by next Monday. So today's Tuesday the 2nd. So June 8th, get everybody in the building, start training camp, and get this season started by July 1st.
Yeah, there's merit to that.
Yeah, and
out of all you just said, like I said, that was the only thing that came into my mind was weather. And so that's not a very big hurdle necessarily to jump, but so out of all you just suggested, it was like, okay, that would be the only thing I could think of that might trip it up. So yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Yep. So that's what I believe that they should do, and MLB needs to get on this. I hope they watch this video, and they'll fix all their problems. And I even said, like, they could just play at their home fields with no fans. Like, they don't need to set it up where they just get into 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 locations or whatever. Like, I don't think that would be a huge necessity. But they could go into a place like Arizona or wherever they decide. I think Arizona said they have, like, a facility there that has, like, many fields that would be able to accommodate a season accordingly. So
let me ask you this: is your expectation that you think that the MLB or basketball and hockey, for that matter, their seasons are going to run without any fans in the stands?
At this point, I believe that that's what they're going to do. I don't necessarily think it's necessary, but that's at the same time they're the ones with all that liability that if a player catches it or a staff member catches it, they're going to catch flack. So they have to make it so they're go ahead.
The NBA already had that happen before they disbanded. The guy that was joking around about having it and going around and touching everything, and I can't think of his name right now. Rudy Gobert.
But no, my point though is that they need to be prepared for that, and how they be prepared is to make it at least appear like they're making all the necessary precautions so that they can't be held liable, right? So like the NBA had a couple of people, it's like, okay, early on, before any shutdowns were happening in America, they shut down their season.
Yeah.
Like, the government did not make them shut down in any way, shape, or form. The NBA took charge and said, nope, we're not doing this. So I think that they're going to have to say no fans. Just they can't afford the liability. They'll make plenty of money in TV. There's going to be tons of people watching TV, so the ratings are going to be through the roof for all these games, for all these leagues, and
Right.
I think they'll make plenty of money in that sense and be good to go.
Yeah, excuse me. I would say that I agree. I think the NHL and the NBA will be no fans. Whatever they do this summer, that's going to be a done deal. I think one that the NFL hasn't made the decision yet about opening day. That I've even read a couple places, but they're leaning on starting like normal. So while I believe again the NHL and the NBA will not wrapping up necessarily, but on the tail end of their stuff, so they're just going to ride it out. But if the MLB is playing through November, then they might have to face a decision at some point, especially if the NFL is running regularly and the baseball fans start complaining that they may readjust that and sometime, let's say, in September or even later, they decide, okay, you know what, we're going to start letting fans in. And the only reason why I brought that up is because you were talking about like Arizona being able to host games in a variety of fields. It's like that's fine, except if your fan base that may be upset with the fact that they can't get there.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to let fans in, then I would imagine that they say, okay, we can go back to everybody's home fields.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, I think that they would make that deal.
Yeah, and then that just brings it full circle back to the fact that if they do that, then the potential for weather causing issues and getting games done, i.e. snow in Minnesota or trying to think of, I'm drawing a blank now of other northern cities that, November, they're
Detroit,
very possibly, yeah,
New
Detroit's
York,
another one.
Massachusetts, or Boston or whatever. Yeah, no, I definitely see that. But they already go with the playoffs through October. Anyway, like the Nats won the championship last year. I believe it was on October 30th or 31st or something like that. So they already do October in a normal season. It would just be adding one more month to the end, and that would be your playoffs, which are now going to have less teams. They're only going to have 5 teams on each side after the wild card game. Now you're only going to have 4 teams, so that you can definitely 8 teams, 4 teams on each side.
Right.
And they would adjust it accordingly. But all right, that is the MLB and their possible return.
We cleared that right up, didn't we?
Yes, absolutely. It's easy. It's easy stuff. I don't know what's so hard about all this logistics and things like this.
They should put us in charge.
Yep. All right, so we're on to the next topic here, and it is on to the contract of George Kittle. I just want to read a statement of what his agent said, and he goes, quote, "Right now, there is not a comp for George. He's unique. He's a unicorn. He's one of a kind. So that's a problem for both sides. Not a problem. It's actually a challenge. And in the tight end position, the tight end economy is draconian and it's outdated. It's just not fair for any of these great tight ends, not just George, but all of them, to have to adhere to it or to be tied to numbers that haven't moved in 6 years. It's just not fair. They shouldn't be punished for it." What do you think about George Kittle being called a unicorn?
Well, it brings up the age-old argument of, and again, anybody in the NFL, I believe, has talent, so I'm not arguing talent here.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to ask yourself, is he a product? And we've asked this about Tom Brady. Is he a product of the system that he is in? And when you have a team like the 49ers that have the strengths they have, and yep, they might lean heavily on you at times, but you're dealing, again, you're part of a system that works very well. If a tight end goes to a sub 500 team and starts playing for them, is he really going to elevate them 5 games or whatever? How much is he going to elevate them in a given season.
Yeah, no position does that other than the quarterback. There's no position.
Right, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, there's no position that you all of a sudden you upgrade there and now you're a 10-win team when you were a 6-win team. Like there's nobody but the quarterback. Yeah.
Right. That's why the money works the way it does. Quarterbacks get paid a lot of money because you have a good quarterback, it's going to potentially add wins to your season. Running backs don't get paid a lot of money in most cases because a lot of them think like they're a dime a dozen, and there's always standouts. Don't get me wrong, but running backs don't make that much money. I was looking at the average salary for tight ends. I'm trying to figure out if this was. I think this is based on last year, but the average salary of a tight end is $5 million. I think the top paid guy is like 10 point something million.
Yeah, I have right here the highest paid right now is Austin Hooper, who just signed a deal. He signed a 4-year, $42 million, so 10.5 a year, and $23 million guaranteed.
Yeah, now if you want to give him some guaranteed money, that's fine. What I think is going to happen is if he's let's say just for argument's sake that he's thinking $15 million. The 49ers are going to go, thank you for your service. He's going to go somewhere else. They're going to pay him the money, and then he's going to be in a different program, and he may not make that much of a difference. And the team that picks him up, I think, is going to regret now setting the bar to a new level for tight ends. Because if he makes 15, then the next guy that comes along, he's going to want 16, and they're going to go the route of all the other superstar players. And
what I think they should do. Well, first of all, let's just go with this. I just want to bring that up. So I'd already brought what the highest paid player is now. George Kittle is way better than Austin Hooper. He's one of the best blocking tight ends, or the best blocking tight end probably in the league. And he can run routes and catch passes. He was the highest rated player, according to Pro Football Focus, in the entire league. So he's almost always in the right position of where he's supposed to be, always doing the job the way it's supposed to be done. He's a freak. He's amazing. Like he is the best tight end. Also, the tight end. Okay.
I'm sorry. Let me just stop you there for a second. Do you not think that has anything to do with the fact that the 49ers were in the Super Bowl last year?
No, because 2 seasons ago he was a number 3 tight end in statistical, number 2 statistical tight end, and he was on a 5-11 Niners team. Like this guy is legit.
Well, I just said he was the highest rated. Were you saying the highest rated tight end or the highest rated player?
Oh no, he was the highest rated player in the league. You're talking about Pro Football Focus?
Well, I'm sorry, but you just said the highest rated player in the league, and I was saying I thought that was last year, and I think
it is last year.
Okay, and I think that has something to do with the fact that they made it to the Super Bowl. What rank was he in the league the year before when they were 5-11? I bet you he wasn't in the top 25.
I don't know. Wrong. But Pro Football Focus doesn't go off of like just whether you're winning games or not. They look at every single play and judge you on every single play based on what they believe you're supposed to be doing, what position you're supposed to be in, and then they also add in statistical analysis as well. But they literally go through every single play and judge you on every single play, give you a grade for every single play, and then they average it out. So a Pro Football Focus grade is actually pretty good at singling you out as what are you doing for your team. So not just because you're on a good team are you going to get high grades. It's like they single you out individually.
Right, and I understand what you're saying, and I'd be curious to where he rated on the 5-11, but also keep in mind if you're 5-11, then he's probably not making 80-some catches. Or maybe he did. Maybe, I guess that was his first year. I guess he made...
That was his second season, and then this last season was his third season. Because he's going into his final year of his rookie contract this year, which is a 4-year deal.
Yeah, I just wanted to look up his career stats. So actually, yeah, in 2018 he made 88 catches. So he actually had a better year than 88 he did in 18 than he did in 19. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, 19 he had a couple of games of injury, so he was like per game basis. I believe that he was a better tight end last year than he was the year before. But he had a couple of games, especially going into the last year. If you had him on your fantasy football team, you were basically won the championship. He was going berserk.
Yeah, what was the guy for New Orleans? That was
Rob Gronkowski.
No. New Orleans Saints. The guy,
Marquise Colston.
Yeah, he was listed as a tight end, but he was a wide receiver, and you racked up the points if you had him, because I know I had him on a team.
Yeah.
And I got to play him in tight end, but he was getting wide receiver numbers. So,
yeah, all right. Well, I want to also go back to this point. The tight end position is an extremely important position. Not the quarterback level position, but it's still an extremely important position. And if you have a guy that can run block extremely well and be a great route runner and pass catch, it's a play caller's dream to make it so that it's another way that you can have the defense off balance. Are we running the ball here or are we passing the ball here? I can do both with George Kittle in here. Obviously, with Redskins fans, we could not do both with Jordan Reed in the game. He was a freak in the pass catching, couldn't block with a lick, couldn't hold. Like, he would always hold, always get called. But, so I think that this guy, if there's any tight end worth it in the league, him and Travis Kelce are the two. Right? And so this is the contract that I thought of. And because I don't necessarily think it's a per year basis, what I'm starting to learn is that the NFL players really, all they really care about is that guaranteed money.
The guaranteed money.
Yep. So the highest right now is at $23 million guaranteed. What I would pay George Kittle is a 5-year deal, $60 to $65 million. So that's between $12 and $13 million a year. $40 million guaranteed. I would almost double what Austin Hooper got, and I wouldn't look back. If you could get away with that.
What is that? Are we up in the wide receiver, or where does that put him in the category of?
No, wide receiver numbers. The great ones are getting like between 15 and 17 million.
But and as we talked about, the guarantee is the big thing. So, $40 million. What kind of player is right now getting $40 million guaranteed, regardless of what the numbers are?
You know, I didn't look into that. I don't know what. I don't know what the guaranteed money is for receivers right now. I don't know what they're. I'd have to look it up. I don't know what they're getting these days.
Here's a stat. It's not like something that somebody normally follows, but I just thought that.
Yeah. But no, that's what I would pay George Kittle. I think he's going to be worth it. And if you can get that deal, I think you're getting a steal. And if he wants a little bit more per year and he get up to 14, even 15 million, I say you pay this guy because he is fantastic for your team. Hard worker, extreme, like he's a little bit crazy actually. If you listen to him talking in interviews and everything, he may not have a completely right screwed on head, but he's still a good guy.
Rob Gronkowski, right?
Maybe a little bit like Rob, yeah. But he's still a good guy, and he's extremely hard worker, and all he does is perform. Like, as I said, extremely willing blocker, also a fantastic blocker, and he's put up huge numbers as far as a receiving tight end. So if you can get this contract, I would.
So here's just a question, just throwing the question out there. If the 49ers don't have Kittle on their team next year, how do you think that affects their record?
Affects their rection? It might lose them a game.
Okay. I was just trying to put it in the perspective of if the 49ers play hardball, I'm not saying they should, but if they decide, you know what, no, we're not paying you that much money, you walk, what is going to be the bottom line effect on them that says, oh, okay, fine, you let me go, now this is what you're going to suffer.
I'll tell you right now, their play caller is going to be very upset. Kyle Shanahan and whoever their offensive coordinator over there is not going to be happy to lose out on George Kittle because they will feel it. They will feel it hard that it's going to be much easier to play them on offense. It still might be going to be difficult, but it will be significantly easier to play without George Kittle because he is that important to an offense.
No, and I wasn't asking that question on the merit of it. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm very choked up apparently tonight, but I wasn't arguing on the merit of it. But okay, 49ers were 13-3 last year. Mm-hmm. If you're saying it cost them a game and they end up at 12-2 or 12-4, they're still in the playoffs. I was just wondering what would the effect be? And I'm not saying they should or they will. It was just out a question of, so what if they decided, no, we'll give you, 30 million guaranteed, 10 million more than the next tight end, and we'll give you 11.5 million a year. And Kittle goes, no, I can get more of that on the, like they don't necessarily insult him, but they don't raise him to that high pedestal that you're talking about. Like, hey, we just blew out the guaranteed money for a tight end by 10 million. So we're not telling you suck, but we're not going to go as high as you want.
Well, that would probably be closer to what I would say the guaranteed money is for a 4-year deal. So if they do a 4-year deal instead of a 5-year deal, then yeah, it'd probably be in that 30 to 33 million, somewhere in there, in guaranteed. Right. I would want him locked up on my team as long as possible. I think he's good, and this would get him to the contract to around 31, 32 years old. He'd be set with money with $40 million. That's life-changing money, generational money. And he's on a great team, so you have a guy that's going to enjoy himself on this team. So I think it would be good for Kittle to not want any more than this. And I think it's a fantastic play for all sides.
I just think and just put one final note on it, that I think sometimes what these players realize, and right or wrong, that teams want a little bit of recognition that, or not a meet in the middle necessarily, but not you're not going to bend us over a barrel and try to ring us for every bit of money you can get, just because if we don't give it to you, you can go to the team over there and they're going to give it to you. I think teams get slighted on that a little bit. So to have some bit of, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah,
if he wants the mega money, he can hold out, and some other team's going to give it to him.
100%.
So that's the last point I'll make on it. But
yep. Awesome. All right.
Do as much as you can. I am not a hater on players making money. I just want to clarify.
Yeah. Awesome. Alrighty, on to the next topic of the day. It is part 2 of the 30 for 30 Lance Armstrong documentary. Dad's favorite subject, because he loves Lance and he can't get enough. No, I'm assuming you did not watch.
I was just going to say, that was true at one point in time. Like I said last time, he sucked me in. But there was one I thought he was great.
There you go. And you did not watch part 2, correct?
I did not.
All right, that's fine.
I want to know what your opinion is of it, and I'll tell you why you're wrong.
Yeah. No, it was even more this time of they did not portray Lance in a positive light. They had plenty of voices on the other side talking about how he was pretty much, the dog-eat-dog phrase he exemplified. If you went against Lance, you don't want to go against Lance. Let's put it it was just not, especially in that time when he was at the peak, you did not want to go against Lance.
Throwing somebody under the bus does not do near justice to what he did to people. I think he threw him under a train.
Yeah, so I know that last time you were trying to remember the name. Jan Ehrlich was the guy that he was going against. Yeah, they talk about him a little bit. And the first question I asked was, did he cheat? And the answer was yes.
Yeah.
He got kicked out of the Tour de France and apparently was not doing well after the fact. He apparently went into some shack in the woods or something and was not doing well emotionally with the entire thing, because I guess he was fighting for the Tour de France for so many years. Lance was finally out of it, and then they decide, nope, we got you, you're out. I'm sure he was cheating the entire time. Yeah. So that sucks. But what was cool that they did talk about in a positive way was the Live Strong and the cancer ordeal, where he did make a lot of people's lives better with cancer, of who had cancer.
Yeah, if you were outside the cycling world, he was a nice guy. I believe, he didn't touch him in the cycling world. I think you thought he was a great guy. But yes, he did. His Live Strong did a lot of good stuff, no doubt.
Yep. And I know last time you mentioned Floyd Landis.
Yeah.
Yep, they talked about him. So you had a lot of problems with the Floyd Landis situation. So what do you recall, and how was your feelings on this situation?
Well, and I remember Floyd kind of was on his team, and then they kind of kicked him off the team. And pardon me if my recollection is not exactly right, but I think this is the gist of it. That then after Floyd got kicked off the team, then suddenly he was going around telling everybody that Lance was doping.
Well,
And
just to clarify it a little bit, you're close. He was on Lance's team. He actually got caught for doping, suspended for 2 years. When he came back, he tried to get on Lance's team, and they were basically like, "No, we can't have you on the team." And so he felt backstabbed, of like, I just took the fall for 2 years. I didn't say anything for anybody else,
right.
and now I'm trying to come back to the team, and you're gonna say no? Like, what the heck? So he talks about that email that he actually sent to, I guess it was some sort of reporter or some news outlet, and he's like, I didn't even proofread it because if I read it back through, I would have second thoughts. So as soon as I wrote it out, I hit send and basically just left, like left the computer, and then thought about it, and it's like, crap. I just went into a crap storm. And now I got to start sending more emails because I don't have any physical proof. I mean, it was by design.
Right.
They got rid of all the proof. So they didn't, keep paper trails or anything of this. It's like he took the dope and everything got thrown away and destroyed.
Yeah, they would do complete, and again, this is my recollection of it, is that Lance would do a complete blood transfusion prior to when he knew he was going to get tested, so that, and that's, again, in hindsight, the way he always was careful to say, it wasn't, I have never doped in my life, it was, I have never tested positive for any banned substance, and it was like, that is a carefully worded response to someone who's a liar.
Mm-hmm.
That they don't, it's like, did you do that? Why would you think I did that? It doesn't say I didn't. I'm not saying I didn't do it, but I'm saying, why would you think that? Would you turn it back on the other person with another question, or that's a misdirection? And him saying that I never tested positive, and again, in hindsight, I look at that and it was like, that was him going, I've been able to fool the system for this long, and you guys haven't been able to catch me, so suck it.
Yep. Yep. So he also talked about, I didn't write her name down apparently.
Who, his girlfriend?
No. Crap. It was one of the trainers, like to help, like they would massage Erica, somebody, O'Shea, or something. Crap.
Let's see if I can find it. I'll try to help you.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't have this written down. Oh well.
We're unprepared.
That's right. Yeah, I thought I wrote her name down, but I didn't. Anyway, that was whatever her name. Once you find it, that was. So they asked, like, was there anybody that you really regret, or like, who did you regret the most, like, attacking? And he was talking about this lady because on one of the interviews, like, he basically mentioned that she was a whore.
Yeah, he was absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
If her name was Erica, I can't find it. Sorry, but
yeah, I'll try to look now.
But no, it was anybody, reporters. He was absolutely brutal. And again, I keep saying in hindsight, but we all know hindsight's 2020. That it was
Emma O'Reilly.
Emma O'Reilly.
O'Reilly.
But his defense is a good offense, and that's what he lived by. Was he went out and attacked people ruthlessly to get them back on their heels and turn the attention to the fact that he was cheating. And I will say two things. This is the extent that I will defend Lance Armstrong. We'll never defend anything he did to the people that he just railroaded. But there's two things. One, that it was rampant in the cycling world, and there was probably a lot more people that did it than didn't, and Lance was just really good at it. And two, the man worked. Like I told you before, he would want his team would run whenever they did a tour anywhere, like the Tour de France. They would find out what the course was, and they would run it twice ahead of the competition, so they knew exactly. They knew the course so well, and they knew where to make their moves and all that. So I can't fault him on the team's drive and the work ethic. It wasn't like, oh yeah, take this stuff and I could sit at home and then I could ride for 120 miles in a leg.
Yeah.
So I will give him that, but his obnoxious, I can't think of a better word right now, of just how ruthless he was to the people around him and the people that got near him, and then knowing the whole time that those people knew what they knew, and yet he was able to basically press them under his thumb and crush them, and everybody kept lauding Lance Armstrong as this amazing success story, which he was.
Mm-hmm.
He was cheating doing it,
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yep. So the last two things that I wanted to bring up, which this one I thought was really weird. So they asked him about his son, who is now playing college football.
Yeah.
And
I read that.
yeah, and they basically asked, like, would he approve of his son doing performance-enhancing drugs? And he basically insinuates that he would approve of his son using PEDs. Like, he's like, at this time, I wouldn't, because it's not worth it. He's a D2 athlete at a college or whatever. But if he was going into the pros, it may be a different story.
Yeah, he said if he made it to the NFL, I would consider it.
Yeah.
So it was like a veiled shot at the NFL, right? And it kind of like, well, if he got into the NFL, he would have to do it, because if he didn't do it, then he's not going to be able to compete with all the other guys that do it. That's kind of what I took was the veiled
I didn't
shot.
take it that way, but I do see why you went that route. I mean, that does make sense, and maybe he is just taking a shot at that. I was just like in awe that it's like, I mean, you just saw what you went through the last 7 years or whatever it's been for being called a cheater and everything like that, and then you would be willing to just be like, yep, go ahead, son, do the same thing. And I just thought that was kind of weird. Like, so he.
Yeah.
But, and then I guess it also goes along with this. At the end, he says he wouldn't change a thing.
Well, of course, don't they all say that? You said
Yeah.
that about Scotty Pippen, but
Yeah.
I will say this, that I think that the fact that he made that comment is, as a father, and regardless of what I might talk to my son about in the back room, or if I thought he needed something for competitiveness, that I would say I would never recommend that my son takes anything ever. And that's Lance, is that he has to say something provocative and saying, well, unless, so he had to throw something out there where he went, okay, really? But as a father, like, if someone was to ask me, would you ever recommend that Tim takes
PEDs, yeah.
PEDs, I would say no, never. And if there was ever going to be a discussion about it, and I'm not saying there would, I'm not saying I would ever do this, but if I ever was compelled to do that, we'd have that conversation in the back room and no one would ever know about it.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yep. Nope. Definitely not Lance. Alrighty. On to the last subject of the day, and it is our beloved Redskins topic, and it is who will make the team in this crowded running back position.
Yeah, you like these questions that...
They're tough. They're tough. But the Redskins fans want to know who's going to make it. And so I went back and I looked at the Carolina Panthers under Ron Rivera. How many running backs did he like to hold? And how many receivers and how many tight ends? Right? Because that's kind of like that's going to engulf like all these positions. Like if you keep an extra running back, the tight end is going to have to suffer. Or if you keep an extra wide receiver, the running back room is going to have to suffer. Is typically how these things work, right? So most of the time he had 4 tight ends. Most of the time he had, except for one season, he had 6 wide receivers. And then the running back room varied a little bit, but a lot of times he only really kept 3 running backs and one guy that was kind of like a hybrid halfback, fullback combo instead of being a true running back in there. So it was a lot of times only 3 true running backs, which if that's the case in this crowded running back room, that's going to be tough to limit down to 3 running backs. So
can I ask you this? Do you see anybody that stands out as a fullback, kind of a hybrid? I don't really
no,
see anybody.
no.
Yeah, I don't either.
Maybe Darius Geis. He's probably one of the biggest ones in the group, but the entire group. So here's the list of the group right now. We have at running back. We have Adrian Peterson, Darius Geis, Peyton Barber, Antonio Gibson, Josh Ferguson, Bryce Love, and J.D. McKissick. That's the list of running backs. And then, after I looked at the Panthers, I decided, you know what, let's go look at the money. Maybe one of these gets eliminated easy by a cap casualty, right? They cost too much. Well, besides Adrian Peterson, who you would save $2.4 million, the rest of them are pretty much all the same. Under $1 million, you would save anywhere from $610,000 to $825,000. So none of them are jump out like the tight end position with Jeremy Sprinkle, where he was just making way too much more money than Thaddeus Moss.
Yeah.
So that didn't really eliminate anybody. So I'm like, crap, this is going to be extremely tough. So do you want to go first of who you eliminated out of your running back room, or do you want me to go first?
Well, I mean, if you want to do it that way, then maybe you should go first. I was thinking more in terms of, because I mean, as we know, this is a crapshoot. I thought about maybe taking tack of starting from the top down, and the top with meaning not necessarily in the best player, but the most tenured player on the team, and work our way down from that and start with Adrian Peterson and maybe work our way through the running backs like that. Or
okay, that's fine. No, that's fine. Okay, so obviously Adrian Peterson has the most experience and is pretty much a lock for the team. Agreed?
Yeah, I would like to think so. I don't. I think he's a great team player. I think he works his butt off. He's got the right attitude. I think he's a Ron Rivera kind of guy. So unless there's something physical that we don't know about, then I can't imagine Ron Rivera letting him go.
Yeah.
When it's not costing that much money to have him there.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I think Adrian Peterson's a lock.
Okay.
Obviously, so now you have... All right, so anyway, so who do you have next on your list?
Well, and Darius Geis, the next one that I'm trying to think if there's any other running backs that have been on.
So Darius Geis has been on the team the longest outside of Adrian Peterson.
Right. So
technically, Darius Geis has been here longer than Adrian Peterson. But
that's right. They brought him in because Darius Geis got hurt.
Yep. Yeah. So
we actually went out of order. Sorry.
No, you're fine. So Darius Geis is a tough one, right? Like, in a sense, it shouldn't be tough because he was a second-round pick. He should make the team. And I think, skill-wise, I think he will earn a spot on the team. But what makes you second-guess it is that he's not Ron Rivera's guy.
Plus, he's had 2 season-ending injuries.
That's true, too. So, injury-prone.
He's 2 for 2, right?
Yep. Yeah. So, it's going to be tough.
I like him I was just going to say, when I've seen him on the field, he is dynamic, he's exciting, he is fun to watch, he's got bursts. I mean, I think, like you said, he's got all the tools, but he just can't stay on the field. And maybe and I know it's an entirely different position, but maybe he's like a Jordan Reed, that when Jordan Reed's on the field, it's like, man, you go, wow, this man just couldn't stay on the field. And I'm just afraid that Geis is going to end up like that. And that would be the reason why, in my mind, that Rivera might say, you know what, I'm just going to cut my losses now. So,
yeah, I don't know.
I say he's got an inside track, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's a lot.
Right. So, I guess, I'm going to switch up a little bit. I think the only 2 locks on the team right now are Adrian Peterson and Antonio Gibson.
Okay. I was going to say that too. It's funny you brought him up because I thought, and I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that he's an Adrian Peterson, but I thought when you look at his, he's 6 foot, 228. Adrian's 6'1", 220. So in my mind, I pictured two guys that are very have the same stature, are very close to the. Everybody else is 5'10", 5'11", which is, I know it's not that big, but they seem more like fire plugs. And Antonio Gibson and like I said, at least from the size and the weight, is Adrian Peterson-like. And I have no idea that, speed-wise, he probably can't hold a candle to him, but you get what I'm saying.
No. Speed-wise, Antonio Gibson could absolutely hold a candle. And Antonio Gibson's got some wheels. Yeah,
maybe, who knows, maybe he could be the next Adrian Peterson.
I would not comp him to Adrian Peterson. I see why you say it, and it's interesting when you look at they're similar in size. I don't necessarily comp the two. I think that Antonio Gibson is more of a receiving back with size rather than a power back that has some moves. So
Right.
I would not necessarily comp him to Adrian Peterson. You look at him, it's much more of a speedster and make you miss, where Adrian Peterson has the speed to make you miss, but more likely than not will choose to run you over.
Right. One thing I'm hoping, and I hear what you're saying, one thing I'm hoping is that one thing Antonio's got going for him is he's got Adrian Peterson with him that can show him things, maybe teach him a little bit about attitude and work ethic. Not saying he needs help or any of those things, but just saying that, look, Adrian Peterson was at the, I know this is an understatement, but you classify him as a success in the NFL, and to have somebody like that that's been through it, that I can see him being 100% behind the rookies or the young players, and Antonio having somebody like Adrian that could be in there and tell him, give him some tips, tell him some things that it can only help his career, I would think.
Yeah. No, for sure. So those are the only two. Now, I decided to also kind of make this into so I think we're going to hold 6 receivers. And I think we're going to hold 3 tight ends. So in theory, if we continue with the math, that means we can hold up to 5 running backs. So right now, I have us holding 5 running backs.
Really? I would not have gone that far, but you got to tell me what you
Yeah. So Darius Geis, I have making the team. I don't think you get rid of a second-round pick, even if it wasn't your second-round pick. And I think he has the talent that if he stays healthy through a training camp, that Ron Rivera would not want to let him go. Yeah, I think he's good.
I understand that. That's reasonable.
Yep. J.D. McKissick is a really good third down back option.
Is he like a Chris Thompson kind of guy?
Yep, a little bit like that. Yeah, he's got good hands, and he can make people miss. I think he makes this team because he's going to make it really tough for him to not make this team, especially at what kind of position he is. Because right now, I don't know, because Antonio Gibson, are they going to use him as a true running back? Are they going to use him as kind of a receiver and a running back combo? I don't know how they plan on using Antonio Gibson. It's so intriguing to see where that goes with Antonio Gibson. But J.D. McKissick is your true third down type back that you would have on your team.
He's running outside or doing screens.
Yeah. And you can line him up outside. I mean, there's other teams that in the past that have lined him up outside, and he can make. If they line him up with a linebacker, it's just a complete mismatch.
Okay.
So I have him making the team. Now the last one I have is, which this could be really tough, but I think that he's going to make it tough to get rid of him, is Bryce Love. He was a 4th round pick. 4th round pick at Stanford. His junior season, he was amazing. 2,000-yard season. Replaced Christian McCaffrey and ended up having a better season than Christian McCaffrey the next season after Christian McCaffrey left. And I really hope that he makes enough noise to make the team, and I think he will. Now, he's similar to Darius Geis, though. The injuries could plague where he doesn't stay healthy enough to even play. He's coming off an ACL surgery from a year and a half ago that hopefully is healed up enough and he should be good to go for this season. So that is my 5 running backs. I think Josh Ferguson was an easy knockoff for me because I just don't see how he makes enough noise to get all over these draft picks. Because 3 of these guys we drafted, Adrian Peterson is a future Hall of Famer. I don't think you get rid of. And then the one that I don't even think that Josh Ferguson makes it over, Peyton Barber, where now Peyton Barber is the next one I have out, which could be really tough because he's got some quality minutes in Tampa Bay. And
he's not related to TE or Ryan.
No, I don't believe so. Okay. I don't think there's any relation. So that's my 5 running backs, and then I can go over another time of who my 6 receivers are going to be.
Okay, we can do that. But hey, I can't argue with you.
So how many running backs did you have them bringing?
I basically had Gibson, Darius Geis, Adrian Peterson, and then I kind of saw J.D. McKissick as kind of a Chris Thompson, so that's kind of what led me to him. I didn't really think of Bryce Love, but I can understand why. I guess I didn't think they were going to be hanging on to 5 running backs, but you made a reasonable argument why they would have. But I think if I had gone with 5, Bryce Love would have been next. So
and I did go back and watch the last few games of Carolina's last season when Scott Turner was the offensive coordinator. And I didn't watch like every single play, but I watched most of the first 3 quarters. And I think only one time in the last 3 games I saw him use a fullback.
Right.
Pretty much he was always using a tight end or a tight end in that spot that motioned out. And I know I've heard this in the past, and it's true. He did use a lot of motion and a lot of shifts in his offense. But pretty much every time they called hike, there was not a fullback in the backfield. So that right now we don't have a fullback. So
you're just saying we need 5 running backs to make it to the 13-3.
I would love 17 running backs to help us with that.
I was just piggybacking off the last episode. That's we're setting up the roster to get to 13-3.
There you go. Awesome. Awesome.
Continue that team until they lose 4 games. So
perfect. Awesome. So that is episode 5. Thank you so much for staying till the end. We had fun today. If you have any comments or any questions or anything like that, we may read them off next episode. Who knows? Put them down there in the comment section. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe as well. And we will see you next week for episode 6.
Bye, everybody.
See you.